All right. Hey there, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. Since there's two classes signing on, there's probably a few more people joining us. Yeah. So why doesn't everyone sign into the chat really quick? All right. So before we start here with new information, did everyone get their work submitted okay today? Any last minute questions or anything on the project that's due today before we get into new stuff? All right. Yeah, I got to see a lot of people's work in progress. There were a bunch of people that checked in during the little office hours thing today. So that was good to see people's work in progress. Yeah, but everyone's work was looking good for the most part. And just as a general thing to think about, the people that are checking in more often with their work, that are making sure to participate in the critiques, all that stuff, there is the work that ends up coming out better. So just kind of think about that as you work on this final, and try to work ahead enough so you can participate in the critiques, so you can check in with me and get some feedback before you turn in that work. Okay, so we're going to go over the requirements for the final today, and there's really like 2.5 weeks left of this quarter, so it's going to go by really fast. So I suggest starting to work on the project after today, now that once you'll have all the most of the information and the ideas, and we'll go from there. Looks like, so Sang-Lee said she was having a problem getting it uploaded. You can try it again after class, Sang. I won't count that as late. There's been a number of people having technical issues. Just let me know if you're able to get it to upload after class, and I can try and help you with that. Yeah, there's always a few technical issues that come up with this. So if anything is bugging you, that you can't get figured out, just reach out to me, let me know, and I'll try and figure out a workaround. I want to be flexible with the due dates this quarter, just because I know we're all dealing with these online classes for the first time and figuring things out. So just let me know if any issues come up. But I think most people have gotten it going pretty smoothly, and I look forward to taking a look at those and getting them graded. Hopefully I will have those done for you guys by the end of the week. I'd like to get those done, okay? All right, any other last minute questions, anything? All right. So we are going to start talking about the final project. So again, just looking at the calendar, there's like just a few weeks left. So we got this class today, then we'll have class next week on Monday or Tuesday, depending on what day you're in, since there's two classes in here. That day we'll be talking about perspective and some shape exaggeration and how to use reference photos. But that'll be our last like full class with new information next week. Then after that, it's going to be just working on the projects. We'll do a few different critiques. I think we'll do one through the discussions feature on Canvas. So I think, yeah, we use that for the video that I showed you guys, the Bugs Bunny cartoon about mood. So we'll use that again. I think we'll do that for your critiques for the thumbnails. Then we'll do in 2 weeks the last critique before the project's due. Okay, so it's gonna go by fast. So make sure you guys start working ahead on it. And let's just go over all the contents of this. It's going to be similar to the previous two projects, but there's a few different things. I want to just make sure we go over that together, and you guys have a chance to ask questions if anything comes up right away. Alrighty. Oh, let me get this really quick. Okay. Alrighty. All right. So, has anyone looked at the project yet on Canvas by chance? Ethan has, good. So the requirements will be slightly different than what it is up on Canvas. Currently, I'm going to go and change that after class today or tomorrow. So it'll be very similar to that. There'll just be a few little bit of things changed. There. All right, so this is our final project. So narrative illustration to design. So what we're going to do is we're going to be creating images that tell a story, okay? So we're going to go over a number of different ways to do that. Well, I'll just kind of go over everything that you need to include on this final project. So the first thing you are going to do is we're going to be creating images that tell a story that's already created. So the way I'm kind of designing this project is as if you are a professional working illustrator or a working artist, and you get hired to work with an author to create a story. So first thing you are going to do is choose a story. So there is a list of stories for you to choose from on Canvas. So these are all pretty much widely known stories. There's some fairy tales, folk tales, different books and novels that you can choose from. But I want you to work from a story that exists already. So I don't want you to worry about coming up with characters and plots and different locations in this story. I want you to worry about visualizing those different things. So bringing those different things to life, okay? So that's why I did it that way, for choosing a bunch of stories to work from and illustrate from. So to choose a story, you should choose a story you're familiar with enough. So choose one that you know. Hopefully choose one that is, you know, inspiring, exciting, gets you excited about drawing different things, things like that. If on that list of stories on Canvas, if you don't have if there's not a choice on there that you really like, or if you're not familiar with all of the other stories, they're mostly stories from Western cultures. So if you're just not familiar with those, you can choose another story. But if you do want to choose another story, just check in with me so I can kind of discuss the options with you and see if it will be a good fit. So you can just email me another idea, or talk with me during one of the other classes. Alan, I'll wait and I'll think about Cinderella. I tried to choose a bunch of a lot of these stories, since they are common, have been visualized before. So basically what I want you to do is try and stay away from designs that have been used. So some of them have been made into, you know, Disney movies or illustrated books or animated movies or live action movies. So you want to be designing new characters, locations, and things that don't exist, okay? So yeah, so first we'll start with that. Choose your story. Then the second thing is going to be thumbnails. Oh yeah, and what you're going to be doing is a book cover, obviously. I should have written that down. So you're going to be creating an image that could be used as a cover illustration, okay, for a book. You could also think of it as a movie poster image, okay? So we'll look at some examples and say exactly how to choose those different images. So thumbnails, I'll give you guys the option. You can do 10 to 15. 10 to 15 thumbnails, okay? All right. So you'll, after you choose that story, so I don't want to see thumbnails from like 5 different stories. So I just want you to choose that one story and draw 10 to 15 thumbnails for that one story. So if it's Little Red Riding Hood, you got 10 or 15 Little Red Riding Hood stories or thumbnails. Okay, so these next 2 steps are going to be new. Gathering reference photos. That's not spelled right. So a lot of you guys have been doing this for some of your projects so far. So all artists use some form of reference photos for their artwork. And that's just basically images that you gather and use yourself to provide visual inspiration, but also to help you figure out how to draw stuff. So you have a question, Cody?
Yes.
Yeah, what's up?
I missed the first 10 minutes, sorry. So you said choose a story. Is it like any story that we want to make up, or like you were saying, choose a certain story, like if I choose Secret of Nim, something like that?
Yeah, so
So we
there's
have to make new
there's a
characters?
list of like 10 or 15 on Canvas for you to choose from. But if one of those doesn't necessarily inspire you, or you have another one in mind that you would like to do, just check in with me and we can discuss if it would be an option. But Rats of Nim would be a good decision, but you have to stay away from the character designs from the animated movie that was made whenever in the 80s or 90s that movie was. So you have to come up with original looking characters, original locations, things like that. And the idea is to like go back and be inspired by the text. So not looking at other images. So reading, go back if you're familiar with the original, book of it, and then that would be the best place to get inspiration. So the best story to choose is one you're familiar with and you know well, to get inspired by it. All right. So yeah. So reference photos. So another idea for choosing a story is to add a twist. So one of the story options is Little Red Riding Hood. So you could do the classic, kind of children's book style of Little Red Riding Hood. But oftentimes for some of the best projects that I've had in the past that people have done, they put a twist on it. So they might do Little Red Riding Hood as a superhero. So she's like a superhero hunting this mutated wolf. Or do it as push it really towards a horror movie idea and do Little Red Riding Hood as a horror movie. Or one person did Little Red Riding Hood in space. So they did like a sci-fi story. Okay, so there's oftentimes adding that sort of twist to a story can be a good way to get very unique and original designs when you're coming up with these different images, okay? And a good way to add that twist is to add a mood to it, okay? So adding that horror movie, you can add an action mood to it, children's book mood, whatever it may be, okay? So those reference photos, you will need at least 5 photos. And you will turn those in just to show what sort of visual research you were doing. So yeah, if you were doing Red Riding Hood, you'll have to figure out how to draw different things. How do I draw a wolf? How do I draw a forest? How do I draw a cape? So you have to look up these different things, find photos of them to help you draw those different things. Because you may not know exactly how to draw a wolf. Anytime I start a new project, I usually start with that visual research. So looking at photos, figuring out what I don't know. How do I draw a forest full of trees? How do I draw a wolf? Well, the only way to figure that out is by doing some visual research and finding photos. The next step then are studies. So these studies should basically be directly influenced by these photos. So I just say 1 page of these. So 1 page in your sketchbook where you're not working, they're not in compositions, just basically practice drawings of these different things. So you're looking at your reference photos and you're figuring out how to draw a wolf, a forest, cape, all those different things, okay? And again, these studies should not be very detailed. They should be pretty quick studies, playing around with shapes, and just trying out different things as you're figuring out how to draw those different items. All right. Yeah, so the studies just basically practice drawings. Okay, so they don't need to be finished, don't need to be perfect. They can be in pen or pencil, but they should be in your sketchbook. And it's just kind of practice drawing those different things that you will need to include in your final art. So if there's a giant, spaceship in your final art, how are you going to draw a giant spaceship? You have to practice that a few times, figure out what sort of shapes you're going to use, how to simplify it, how to make good silhouettes, just how to draw all those different things that will be in your final art. Yes, you are. So Christopher, we're just designing the art for a book cover. So no text. That's for the graphic design class. If you guys do that, we're just designing the image for the book cover. Yep. Workup sketch. So hopefully after you do reference, after you do your studies, then it should be easier to do that workup sketch. Okay, so same idea. If those thumbnails are 3 inches on the longest side, they should be about 6 inches. You only need 1 of those, okay? But the thing I saw that people were missing in their workup sketches for this project, the ones that I did see for the different classes, is just really get those values and value contrast. Okay, in your workup sketch, okay? You can also add details, texture, which we will talk about more later, okay? Yes, Alan. Yeah, I'm recording this, so this will be up if anyone needs to go over this again or for people that are not here. All right. In your final art, obviously in Illustrator. So you want to get one really good, well-designed image for that cover. So this is going to be including everything we've been practicing. So all the way from that very first day, talking about different types of line quality, different types of shapes, thinking about rule of thirds, symmetrical composition, so all that stuff. Then you're going to put mood on top of it to make sure it has a strong mood. Do you want your image to be scary, friendly, have a sense of action? And then on top of that, then you're going to put storytelling on that. So this one image you're going to make is going to take a lot of time to get this one image, but it's really going to encapsulate everything we've been learning through this whole quarter. Yes, so everything we've learned in one really well created image, and I'm going to be expecting to see, really good technical understanding of Adobe Illustrator. So showing that you can do all the different things with the program to get a really nice unified image. Yes, now just one image, and then you have the option. Extra credit, you can do one more image for extra credit, okay? So you can create 2 covers. So if you want like an alternate cover, or if it's like you can picture it as a movie posters where you have more than one poster. So if you would like to do that second one, you can do extra credit for that. So there's just another chance if anyone needs some extra credit to get it that way. Okay. But again, if you did this, how I mentioned for the previous project, make sure this one image gets done to a really high level. Then if you have time, go ahead and do the extra credit. Alicia, I don't have the exact points figured out yet. Probably 30 to 50 points, something like that. I'll try and figure out what's fair and once I look through all the point totals. And then you will have your reflection again. And so for this time for the reflection, talk about the entire class, okay? So you can talk about what the experience was like doing this online class experience. I would like to hear a little bit about that. Talk about what projects you like the most, which were the most difficult. Talk about, you know, learning the technical side. How was learning Adobe Illustrator? Did you enjoy working digitally more? Did you enjoy the traditional part? Did you like working abstractly? Did you like representational art better? So kind of just an overall summary of your experience for the whole class. And all of this should be representational now. We're on fully representational art. You may have some combinations of some abstract imagery combined with your representational art. But for the most part, everything for this one obviously will need to be representational since you're trying to tell an actual story with your images, okay? All right, any questions on any of this? That was some good questions so far. Any last things? All right, so I would suggest before next class, definitely you want to choose a story, okay, before next class. Go in there, look at the list on Canvas, see if any of those options will work. If not, then reach out to me and just through Canvas or email and figure out what story you're going to do. And I would suggest starting your thumbnails as well, okay? You don't have to do all of them by next week. We will have a critique sometime next week, not during class because there's still some more information to go over. But I think, yeah, during sometime next week, we'll figure out a way to do a critique during those discussions. But if you start your thumbnails and you get, you know, 5, 10 of them done already, and you want some feedback before next class, feel free to reach out to me and we can start that way, okay? I think during next class, we'll look at some student examples as well to get you some ideas that way. And we'll just go from there, okay? But yeah, just keep an eye on the calendar. Make sure you're working ahead so you don't not saving it all for the last week. And we'll go from there. Yes, so just choose that one story. So I don't want thumbnails from 5, 10 different stories. So choose one story, 10 to 15 thumbnails for that one story, okay? So yeah, it may take you a little time to choose that story. Again, try and choose something you know well, something that will be fun to draw. And then think about that twist too. So, you know, maybe none of those stories are necessarily interesting, but maybe you really want to draw a horror story and you can turn any one of those ones into like a creepy mood or whatever it may be. All right, just a sec here. Yeah, Tammy, I will want to see mood in it. So it doesn't need to be like strictly one strong mood. But if you're drawing an exciting scene from one of your stories, maybe you want to get a sense of motion in there. But it'll probably be a combination of more than one mood. So maybe you have, you know, the creepy mood, but then it's an action scene as well. So you want some motion and some creepy in there. Maybe you want the calm scene of a calm moment from the story. So you could do that. But then maybe it's still a little kid kind of style. So you can combine calm and friendly together, things like that. So yeah, mood will be something that I'm looking for, but obviously with storytelling as a part of it. All right. All right, so these are some types of things that you can start to think about, hopefully just for getting some ideas going for your, before you kind of even start your thumbnails, okay? So these are just some types of covers that I've seen a lot and that I've created and that are really common out there in the book and movie poster industry there. So dramatic moment. Okay, so this is a very common one. You'll see this a lot of times on book covers, movie posters. So that dramatic moment from the story. So right when something big is happening, a sense of action's happening, something that is important to the story is happening. So that is oftentimes something that we will see on a image cover. All right. Asking a question with your imagery. So if you can raise a question in the viewer to whoever's looking at your imagery, that will be something important. So who is that character? What are they doing over there? Why are they carrying that? What's that weapon in their hand? What's in that bag? Anything like that can help to create an engaging and exciting image for someone to look at. A unique character. Okay, so sometimes a cover image can simply be displaying a very unique, original, dramatic, interestingly designed character, something that people haven't seen before, something from the story that gives a little insight into that story about who is this character. And this can kind of relate back to the question, who is that character? What are they doing? If you just can show that unique character, that can be an interesting image for a cover. Unique location, kind of the same thing. So you can also choose to focus on one location. So again, it could be that the forest right before Red Riding Hood goes in there, these tall, creepy trees, things like that. We just see a tiny little character walking to this forest. Maybe the forest is that unique location, or she gets to the grandmother's cottage, and how are we designing this cottage? Maybe that's something that you could focus on for that. Dramatic mood can be something. So maybe you just really push one of those moods really, really hard, and then that can make a very engaging or exciting image. Or combining moods. Okay, so you could combine moods that kind of go together already, you know, like motion and scary. Lots of times those things can have something in common, a lot of angular shapes, diagonals. But you could also combine moods that don't go together. So you could put a scary mood with children's book like image. So what if you put all these dark values with a teddy bear sitting in the middle of your composition? So that could create a very interesting and exciting image just by putting those two very different moods together. Okay, so all of these here, and the general goal of this cover image is going to be to attract a reader or a viewer. So that should kind of be your goal. So a literal book cover or a actual movie poster, their guide is to get someone to buy that book, or their goal is to get someone to buy that book or buy a ticket for that movie. So you want to create an image that's going to draw people in, make them excited about the story, make them see a very unique view of that story, to hopefully get them to spend money on the product, okay? So again, you guys are just creating the imagery. Usually in the illustration industry, they'll hire out one person to do just create the artwork, and then another person is in charge of doing the graphic design and layout with the text and everything like that. So you guys are just doing the artist side of this job. So you don't need to come up, so no putting text or titles on there. Yep, exactly. Something people will spend their money on. So usually these are the ways they get people to do it. Creating something unique, exciting, engaging, that will get people excited and get people to spend their money. Okay? All right. So let's look at some ways to get some good storytelling in there. Storytelling. So to create a good storytelling image, you want the whole image to be reinforcing the story. It's really some of the most powerful types of imagery out there. Some of the most engaging and interesting images are the ones that tell a story. So we can go back and we'll look at some examples all the way back from, religious paintings during the Renaissance were all about creating these exciting, engaging images that told traditional religious stories, but in new, exciting ways to get people to go to the church and go and look and kind of spend money to help support the church. And creating those exciting images was kind of the artist's job to sell this religion to all these people. So we'll look at a bunch of different art. So you want everything in the composition to be working towards that. So you're going to be creating images that work to tell that story. So everything in the image should be reinforcing that story. And we'll look at a bunch of different types of art that can do that. But the biggest way that I think about it is you want everything in that image to tell the story, including the big shapes. The big shapes should tell the story all the way down to small details. So big shapes are obviously the largest shapes in their compositions, but these are also the quick reads. So this is what someone will read when they just glance at your image. So you'll read those big shapes in 1 to 2 seconds. So just by glancing at that image on a poster, on a screen, those big shapes will very quickly tell you kind of a general overview of that story. But then the small details, that's what people look at for longer, for 30 seconds. And this is going to reinforce the story. So the big shapes tell a story, so does the small detail. All right, so a very, very simple example of this. Let's say we want to create an image that told about some dangerous, rocky mountains and cliffs, okay? So I'm going to design these big shapes with lots of dramatic angles in them. Maybe let's put a little rock climber here to maybe. Okay, so right now these are pretty much just the big shapes in there. So those big shapes are hopefully telling the story about these dangerous mountains. Guy climbing that cliff there. And for the most part, these big shapes are telling that story. You can glance at this and you can get a read of it very quickly. So the big shapes are good. So then what I would say, so maybe this could kind of be just what you design for a thumbnail. But then the next step is to go in and start adding details to make this more interesting and reinforce that story. So I'm going to go in and then you can start adding cracks in here along the mountain. You can add snow tops along the tops of these mountains. So these are just smaller shapes, details. I can add some dramatic shadows here as well. Texture is part of that. So small details. Let's go back to this one here. So what are some small details? We got facial expressions. If you have characters in your scene, which you may or may not. Poses, how the characters are standing. Texture is a big one. So it's something rough, smooth, soft, fluffy. And we'll go over some techniques to display texture. And any other small shapes. Okay. Let's go back to our little example here. Okay, you know, I could start to put, the guy's pretty small here, but I could add details on him. I could add a backpack. I could add some ropes coming off here. Maybe the type of hat he has on. Anything like that. Texture on this mountain, showing that it's cracked and rough and jagged and made of rocks. I can add some weird looking trees in here to kind of add to that creepy mood. So all these things are smaller shapes, but they're trying to reinforce that story. Okay, so the smaller details should work with the larger shapes. All right, let's do another example here. So you also want to design and create those big shapes first. Make sure the big shapes are working. And if the big shapes are working, then go into the details. I think about it like the cake and the frosting, where the big shapes are the cake and the details are the frosting. But you can't put any frosting on until you make the entire cake first. So make that cake, get your big shapes figured out, and then add the details, add the frosting after that, okay? So let's work on an example here together. You guys can draw along with me here, but I'm gonna need some ideas in the chat from for some suggestions, okay? Just a sec. So I'm gonna create just the large shapes here, the quick read shapes, and then we will see what sort of details we can add into this scene. Okay. Okay, so our story is just gonna be a little corner store in a downtown city, okay? So have you guys all been to a little corner bodega store before? Think about times you've been to one, what you bought there, what everything was like around there. So hopefully, here's my big shapes, right? All right, Cody, good suggestion. So here's my big shapes, right? So these big shapes are very generally kind of telling the story, it's telling me where this is, what it is. It's a corner store, but it's pretty basic. So right now I need suggestions of more of small shapes and small details I can add into this. Light posts, yes, let's start with that. And even the kind of light posts I add is going to add to the story. So am I adding a old-timey wooden one? Here I did kind of those metal ones that have kind of ornate bottoms on there. Let's say, oh, Cody said people in the window here having coffee. Yep, we could do that. stripes on the awning here, or the roof thing, as Jordan said. That's a good one. Street signs, yep, that's a good one. So yeah, think about downtown streets you've walked on, places you've been similar to this. Storefront. So yeah, the storefront, just putting some more information here on the store. Some signs and whatnot. Garbage cans, yeah, that's a good one. And again, what kind of garbage cans? I'm gonna design these old, you know, classical looking garbage cans that they probably don't use anywhere anymore, but that's okay. People walking on the sidewalk, that is a really good one. Including things that move. So people are moving. People make a city or a location feel like a real place, make it feel like it's being used, like it really exists. If I had no people here, that would only work if I was trying to tell a story about the middle of the night, you know? So when the streets are completely abandoned. Name of the store. Yeah, let's do that. Let's put the name of the store right here. What should we call this? Like Joe's Deli or something? Put it over here. Rain is a great story addition. Rain adds in some instant mood to there, because we all know how it feels when we're walking around in the Pacific Northwest on a rainy day. Dark clouds, yep. Okay, what could I add just to the light post here? Just the lamp post. What could I add to the lamp post there? Just to make the lamp post itself more interesting. Oh yeah, those flowers. Yeah, those little hanging things. These are really nice design shapes. What else? Yeah, lighting. Posters, I like that. Yeah, Eliza, I love it when there's posters on those street signs. Makes it feel used, like people are really living. Lines in the street, yeah, let's do that. That'll be a good one. A walking sign. I'm gonna throw some street signs on here too. Okay. All right, so yeah, Jordan said some lines in the street. What else could I add down here, like in the street section, to make the street more interesting? What have you seen on roadways? I'm gonna add some lines in here so we have some dividing lines. Another level to the building. Do you mean like a second floor up here, Tevin? Yep, that's good. So we see the people that live up here above the store. Yeah, newspaper rack is good. I guess that looks more like a mailbox, but that's okay. What about here? What about in the street? Let's go back to the street. What can we add in the street there? Cat, nice. Parked car, yeah, let's just see the edge of a parked car here. Yes. Zebra cross a crosswalk. There we go. That's what I want. I want a crosswalk in there. I'm going to add in these little drainage things down here, you know, the sewer grates. Yeah, I had a bunch of clutter. So usually, my advice is going to be to make things dirty, okay? So unless your story is about something that is brand new and about a neat freak character that lives there, then you should make things dirty. It's going to make them look used, make it look more real. So unless I'm telling a story about a character that's a neat freak or a brand new place or a brand new thing, then I want it to be dirty. Can on the road, yep. Just some general trash and litter. Yes, let's get a shoestring in there. I'll put a little wire here. All right. Okay, someone said some smaller buildings in the background. Let's add some of those in before we get too much stuff going on. And generally my advice will also be just to add more stuff. So it's gonna be, you're gonna have to add a lot of stuff before you get too much in there and I tell you to stop. So, yeah, I like that, the dark silhouette. So that's a good thing here. So if you just notice the difference between these buildings here in the foreground, actually what should this, so think about the texture of this building here, guys. What texture should I make this? What do we want to show that's going on in this, on this building? What's it made of? Bricks, yeah. So when you add texture on here, this is a note, we'll get into some more details of this later. But you want more details and more things like texture on things both that are closer to you and also on your focal point. So write that down. So more texture, more details on a focal point and on things that are closer to you. So these buildings here are closer to us, so I can draw bricks there. I can draw some cracks, just some general scuffed upness. But all these buildings here in the background, I can put a few indications of windows, but I'm not going to try and put texture in here. I'm not going to try and put, you know, bars on the windows or even draw all the windows. I'm going to leave most of these buildings in the background just as silhouette shapes, okay? I'm going to put a few cars over here on the far side of the road. And even some people way over there. Yeah, it is getting busy, isn't it? But it is becoming a much more interesting and unique image at the same time. The reason we're doing this as like a city type location is because this is a place most people have been. Most of you guys have experienced something kind of like this. And it allows us to come up with more ideas to fill up this space. You know, if we were doing a research laboratory, if that's the location we were drawing, I wouldn't be able to come up with as many things off the top of my head of what goes in a research laboratory. Then I would have to find more pictures online, Google search science lab, research lab, university lab, and see what sort of shapes and things are in that. But doing this for a location that we're all familiar with, it's easy to come up with a lot of ideas off the top of our head. I have also drawn a bunch of city scenes before, so it's a lot easier for me to know how to draw these different things. Again, this was like a more unusual location. I would need to do some more visual research. All right, so if something does get too busy, I'm just going to show you a little trick here of how to adjust with values to make sure your focal point is staying clear. So we want the Joe's Deli and kind of the front of this store face to be our focal point. So I'm just going to put a 50% gray over everything kind of in the background. So now all this stuff here that's closer to us is going to stand out more because I just kind of knocked everything else back with that at 50% darkness. And I'll just make sure to get some really nice solid black values right here on the focal point in the foreground too. That looks kind of nice. Okay. Oh, even here on the stripes can be a good place to get some alternating light and dark values. I'll even do a little bit, oops, here in these windows, why not? Put some down here on some of these objects, maybe even the people I could do as a silhouette. This is, oops. All right. So we went and took something very, very plain, ordinary, those basic, just big shapes, something not very interesting. Even this is still relatively descriptive. You can tell what it is. You get a good quick read. But to make it tell a story, to bring it to life, you have to add those small shapes and those details, and ideally some values too, to help make that story more unique, okay? Any questions about this? So every image you create won't be quite, yes, this tells a story about a dirty deli shop in a dirty city, exactly, Cody. So that's the story we're telling here. It's also a busy city. There's people walking by all the time. It's also starting to tell the story of the mood, kind of the dark, dreary mood with the rain and things like that. The type of shapes I'm using, the type of textures that we see. So yeah, that's the story being told in this image, okay? We could change and draw this in a different way and make it seem like a friendly, clean, brand new city, but we could start with about the same stuff, but then the details we add would be a lot different. All right, Alan, you want to see some dark silhouettes in the background? So yeah, I could throw in all those buildings as a dark silhouette as well. And that would kind of help with the dark, scary mood if I wanted to push that a little bit further. All right. Any other questions about this? All right, let me find some images and we'll look at some other artists. Where did I put that? All right, just one sec here. Okay. So I gathered, again, images that tell a story are oftentimes the most interesting to me. That's why I really like comic books, illustration, animation, things like that. So here, has anyone seen the movie Big Hero 6? By chance? So what sort of information do we learn? I oftentimes like to look at the background art. I like to look at the background art of animation, because they need to design these backgrounds to give information about the characters, even if the character is not in the scene. So what do we know about this character just by looking at this image of their room? Can you tell the age of the character, the sex of the character, the temperament of the character? Can you tell how much money the family has? He's messy. Not too rich. Middle class. About what age do you guys think? No organization. Yeah, kind of a teenager. Oh, can you tell what era, when this story takes place? Present day, future, past? Yeah, so they're able to pack a lot of information. What are some interests of this the person that lives here? What do they like to do? What are some of their hobbies? Gamer, yep, free spirit. They like robots, yep. So that's quite a bit of information we're able to get from just one image. So also, where is this room located? What part of the house does this look like? So we got kind of a, yeah, kind of up there in the attic. So we got a middle class family. It's not, it's not a super tiny little room, but it's also not a giant mansion room. We have a messy kind of kid, like teenager age you guys were guessing, which seems right. They're into, technology, got all the computers and stuff there, into robots with all the figurines, all the monsters. We got the soccer ball that they're interested in. And then all the other stuff that typical, teenagers, yep, they like pizza, like soccer. And so this is a lot of information that you guys were able to get just from one image. Yeah, we got the little fish tank over here. He likes his pets, and obviously not very clean. So there's just a little bit of negative space left in here for where the character might move around on the floor, or they might hop up on their bed. But other than that, everything's super busy, very cluttered. But it gives us a lot of insight. And basically, this is all telling story about the character and about the person that lives there. Okay. Let's look at a couple other ones. All right. So this is by the artist Norman Rockwell. We've looked at some of his work before, but he's a master illustrator. He was working mostly in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and he did a lot of covers for the Saturday Evening Post. He's one of my favorite artists. What he combines really nicely is really, really good technical skill, the ability to draw really well, be able to draw people, be able to draw perspective, really good technical skill in terms of controlling the oil paint and controlling color. But what he has with the technical skill, he also matches with his storytelling ability. And he was able to create these images that could just draw you in, and you could instantly learn about and kind of relate to the characters. So can you guys tell what is going on in this image and any general information about the relationship between the characters and what the characters are doing? Yep, father and son. Exactly. What are they doing? Yep, exactly. The son going off to college. Yep, the dad's like a blue collar mechanic type worker. The son's going off to college dressed in his suit. Yeah. The dad looks sad. What about the dog? Yeah, so he packed this story too, and yeah, we get a sense of the era too, kind of, yeah, that 50s, 40s, 50s era. Um, so if you guys have ever, moved out of your parents' house or had kids move out of your house, you can probably relate to this image on some level. Kids growing up, going on to different, possibly better things. He's going to, work a job or go off to college because his dad was working a blue collar job his whole life. The dad's in that kind of sad pose, looking off one way. The dog, you can read like a book. That dog is not happy at all that the kid's leaving. But yeah, their difference in their clothes, their difference in their posture, how they're sitting, their facial expressions, and then the little details like the little pendant on the son's suitcase kind of shows us that he's going off to college. But a lot of story packed into one just single static image, and a story that we all have some can relate to in one form or another. And so a lot of times with these storytelling images, it doesn't matter necessarily how good you're drawing stuff. So if you look at this in my drawing here, these aren't like necessarily good, well-drawn people. Like these are kind of scribbly. This isn't like a well-drawn um, garbage can here. All you guys could draw this stuff just as well as I can, but it's how you tie them all in together and compose them together. So here's an image from some concept art for Toy Story. So this again is done before they do any animating for the movie. So this is just trying to tell the story about the kid's room, about who the kid is, what he likes to do, and kind of this one's also getting that overall friendly, happy mood into the story as well. But all the details of the toys, the light values used, the wallpaper in the background, the type of bed that's there. Oh, here's another one. This is from a background art from 101 Dalmatians. You guys seen 101 Dalmatians? Go watch your Disney Plus if you haven't. That's a really good animated movie. But really nice design here. So we learned that the character is kind of messy, musician. It takes place in London, so there's the T there, things like that. We get an idea of the era based on the architecture of the window and the banister and things like that. For some that are a little less busy, so this is telling us a story. This is not as dramatic of a story. It's more kind of a just calm, quiet moment of a guy walking with his dog. So this is the artist Pascal Campion. He's a French artist and works in animation. I've shown you a couple of pieces of his before, but I went to a talk by him a few years ago now, a lecture he gave, and when he was in art school, they didn't teach him any sort of drawing technique. So they didn't have figure drawing class, they didn't have basic drawing, they didn't have perspective class. All they learned was storytelling. So all of his images are packed with story in there. So they're not drawn in, they're drawn a little bit crudely, where it's not necessarily a perfect, flawless drawing, but he's more worried about packing his image full of story and kind of giving you something that you can relate to. So where's a few more of his? Here's another one of his. And his are all digital paintings as well. Trees are hard to draw. Yes, they are. If you have tree, we can do a quick tree tutorial later on. My biggest tip for trees, if anyone has to draw trees, is draw the entire shape. Don't draw individual leaves. Draw just one big shape for it. Here's another one of his. So nice, all the clear focal point here. So the character is a clear focal point playing guitar. But then all these little storytelling details surrounding him. So the plants, the cushions, the books on the bookshelf, the little cat up here, things like that. Yes, Naya, I will do that. Next class, actually, we will talk about perspective. So how to give depth in your drawings and make things look three-dimensional. So that will be coming next class, but I can give a very, very, very quick basic idea of it if you want to use any of these ideas to start off. Basically just thinking about the use of value to show depth. So you have, a person here standing on the edge of a mountain, and then some more mountains off in the distance. And you just want to think about darker shapes in the foreground and shapes lighter the further away they go. So here, this shape might be 100% solid black in the foreground. And then we get a little bit darker for the next level here. And then a little bit lighter the further away you go. So thinking about value to add depth for foreground. So usually your foregrounds will be darker and they will get lighter the further away you go. And Cody asking about the shading with the sun. For the most part, you want to, don't worry about what would happen in reality. Okay, so don't, oops. Can you guys hear me? It looks like it's lagging for a sec. Okay, am I back? Can you guys hear me again? You guys are moving. So Cody said, is the shading here different with the sun? It can be, but really it's about making it work better for your drawing and not worrying about too much what would happen in reality. Okay, so you would get a little bit of highlights there, then some solid black of the shadow going this way. Makes a little slightly lighter values there. But in general, as the rule of thumb, darker values in the foreground and then lighter values the further away you go. And we'll get more into details about this next class, but this is just kind of an intro. No, I'm not sure what you mean by that the shapes aren't so solid. Oh, on Illustrator? Do you mean, Naya, do you mean like doing individual shading on an individual object like this? Sort of. Yeah, I'll think about that, Naya, and I'll think about some specific things I can show you on Illustrator to help with that shading, okay? And if you have any specific examples of places you want to get some of those shadings in, if you come across on any of your sketches, just let me know and I can try and work up some examples for that. Okay. We'll just look at a few more quick images here. Here's another Norman Rockwell one. Can you guys tell what is happening in this image? Can you tell what is going on in this visual story? Soldier coming home to his family. Exactly. Yeah, the soldier coming home from war. So we got our nice focal point here. Well, there's actually two focal points. We had the son here and the mother. So he does a good job of tying this all together. So we can tell these are families because of that orange hair color on all the mother, the siblings, and the soldier here. So that kind of tells us they're all in a family. We can tell they're a poor family, you know, getting repairs, hanging the clothes outside. So we have a little idea of their status. The era is very clear, obviously, because of the war uniform. We have his girlfriend who's a little shy around the corner. Yep, exactly. Kind of eyeing him from around the corner. But all these leading lines of the buildings lead down. Lots of sight lines. Everyone in the neighborhood is excited to see him. We have a path from all the siblings running out and the dog going right towards him. So a lot of story in one single image. All right. So let's do a little bit of drawing here really quick. So why don't you guys take out your sketchbook, put a frame in it that's just a few inches, 3 or 4 inches wide on there. I'll give you a couple options here for Okay, so draw a frame, and I want you guys to write down the words of a character. So the character's age, sex, their job, their attitude, and any hobbies they have. Okay? So you write down these of any sort of character. It can be someone you know, it can be a character you're inventing, it can be a combination of people you know, whatever it may be. Okay? And we are going to just design, how much money they have is another one. Are they rich, poor, middle class? Jordan, I will give you some images that you're going to fill in here really quick. Let me pull this up here really quick. Okay. So I'm giving you a very, very basic blank bedroom template here. Or you can do a house. You can choose to do the bedroom or the house. Now I want you to design these two locations. Era. So what era is it? Modern, past, future. Okay, and you should design these locations and add details. I'm giving you the big shapes. I want you guys to design the small details here, okay? So you can change anything, add anything in you want to these. You only have to just do one of these. We'll do this for like 10 minutes. See what you guys can come up with, how you can design these locations to match this character in your description, okay? So what does your character's bedroom look like, or what does the outside of that character's house look like? Okay, take about 10 minutes and then we'll share what you have.
Andrew? Andrew?
Oh, yeah, is that a question?
Yeah, it was freezing pretty hard for me. So what are we supposed to draw this on a piece of paper right now? And then copy what you just have, the basic drawing, and then kind of throw in the age, sex, job, attitude, little details?
Exactly. So yeah, you'll probably just have time for one of these. So choose describe your character first, their age, sex, job, attitude, hobbies. their income, and what era we're in, and then design these locations to match whatever character you designed. Does that make sense?